Today we're going to talk about this episode, and this is the second to last one. So, the title is called Half Measure. So, the opening of this episode was that Walter, he just went back home. He took Junior out for practicing driving, and they were back home. When they were back home, Scatter came out, and she asked Walter whether he reconsidered what she proposed before or not. So we know that from the last episode, Walter, Saul, and Scatter, they were talking about finding a location to do their money laundering. So in the first place, Saul he wanted to do that in the laser tag, but the relations between laser tag and water it just didn't add up for Skyler. So Skyler figured that maybe the car wash that Walter used to work at was a good place if they really wanted to go down this road. So they needed a man who can be behind all of this and help both of Saul and Walter with the money laundering. So she proposed that maybe she was a good choice. But Walter did not want her to get involved in this, so he turned that down. And he told Skyler that if she really wanted to go down this road, then she had to allow Walter be back to his house, to sleep in his own house, to have dinner with the family again, because that's how they can really saw this story to other people. That's how they can really convince people about everything with their story. So after some negotiations, Skyler agreed with that. So Walter can be back to his own house again. So the next day, in the lab, Jesse, it seems something troubled Jesse. So Jesse asked Walter out for drink after the work. And in the bar, he took out a little package of meth. Uh, and he threw that package on the table. So Walter took a look at it and he was sure about that was their product. But he didn't know why Jesse did that out in the public. So Jesse said that that was the product that he bought from from the two guys who killed Combo. They were selling on the street, and the product they sold was actually from the lab. So that means these two guys they worked for Gus and they killed Campbell. So he wanted his revenge. So the reason why he asked Walter out was because he wanted the ricin. He wanted the poison that he could add into their food to poison them and kill them. So Walter disagreed with that because that's pointless to him. He didn't want to do that. That would piss Gus off, and he 100% didn't want to do that. So Jesse told him that that meant a lot to him, and if he did not get involved in this, he wouldn't push it. But he he would do that with his help or without his help or not. So he left. So Walter concerned about Jesse very much. So he went to Saul and asked him for help. And Saul promised him that he would go to Mike and saw if there are something they could do. So in the night of that day, Skyler and Junior they weren't home, and it was just Walter. So someone knocked the door. So Walter answered the door, and that was Mike. So Mike told Walter that that wasn't a phone talk. He want to talk to Walter face to face. Then he told him that he wasn't going to do what they asked him to do because if they really did that, Gus would not be happy about that. So he told Walter to satisfy with his status quo because he had good thing going. He had good thing going. Everyone had good thing going. Just don't ruin it. And he brought up a story that when went back to the time when he was still a beat cop, uh, he got called out with his partner every week to deal with a domestic violence case. So every time when they got there, they asked that woman to press charges every time to keep her husband away from her. But she did not want to cross her husband at all, so she turned that down every time. So there was one time they got called out again. But this time, when Hank handcuffed this man and put him in the back of the car and took him back to the police station, along the way, this man was humming a song in the back of his car. And Mike said that he was angry, he was irritated by that. So instead of taking him to the police station, he, he turned right out into the nowhere and took this guy to the corner of the block, and then he made him kneel down, and then he shoveled his gun into his mouth and threatened him to kill him if he ever, touch this woman again. So this man, he was scared, and he promised Mike that he wouldn't touch her anymore. So it was just a warning, and then Mike let him go. But after 2 weeks, they received a phone call again, but this time, uh, it wasn't just a minor injury to this woman. This woman got killed by this man. So Mike told Walter that he chose the half measure that day when he should have gone it all the way, but he chose the half measure. So he said that he would never make that mistake again. So the reason why he said this was to to give Walter a heads up that if Jesse really want to go down this road, then he would do anything he could to stop him, even though he had to kill him. So that's it. That's the talk about Jesse in the night that day. So on Jesse's side, he actually knew a woman, uh, and this woman she delivered hamburgers or some foods to these two guys like twice a week. So he knew this woman, and he found out she would do this every week. So he had a plan. So he came to this woman and he asked her to help him to add this poison into their hamburger. And the next time when she delivered the food to these two guys, he can get his revenge. So in the morning of one day, they were waiting on the corner of the block and waiting those two guys to show up. But instead of showing up from these two guys, it was Mike came to the side of Jesse's car and he knocked, the window of the car. He told Jesse to leave with him. So Jesse took well, Mike took Jesse to the warehouse on the suburbs of Albuquerque, and Walter, Gus, and even though these two guys they were waiting, so it turned out that Walter told Gus about everything, about Jesse's plan. So Gus told Jesse that uh, these two men were his employees, and they did kill Combo, but that was because he was selling on their territory. So there was blame on both sides, but he wanted to settle this right here, right now. So he told Jesse that to shake hands with these two workers, but Jesse said no and looked him right in the eyes. And he told Gus that these two guys they used little kid to do their killings for them. So any reasonable businessman should not do this. He said this to Gus. So Walter was nervous about what he said. And then Gus, he just, he was totally silent. And he, after few seconds consideration and without saying anything, he turned to those two guys and he asked them never use children again. So apparently, Gus took Jesse's proposal, and he actually knew that Jesse was, he had his reason to be angry, and he wanted to settle this. So that's the way to, that's how they meet halfway. So, uh, Gus turned to Jesse again and he asked Jesse to shake hands with these two guys. And this time Jesse did. So the whole situation got controlled and it didn't go any further. Yeah, the whole condition didn't get worse. So Jesse back to Andrea's house, his girlfriend. He was still obsessed with this. His mind was still uneasy. So when they were lying on the bed, with when Jesse was lying on the bed with Andrea, there was a call came in. So it was Andrea's grandmother, and she sounded very panic. So Andrea asked her what was going on. So it turned out that this little kid, Thomas, got killed on the street. So when we got to the scene, Jesse was shocked about all the scene, and he knew that that was those two guys did because Gus on the afternoon in the afternoon he told those two guys did not use children again, but this is how they cleaned up. So Jesse he he was he was totally kind of he made up his mind that he would kill these two guys. So on the same time, in the same time, Walter was watching TV with Junior and waiting for dinner. Then he saw the news, and news said that there was a kid got killed, and maybe it was related to some gang's execution or things like that. That's how the TV news said. So once he heard that, he knew that was the kid that Jesse kept talking about. And he knew that he suddenly realized why he couldn't get in touch with Jesse that day. And that was because that. And he had a very bad feeling about this matter. So instead of having dinner with his family, he left. He told his family that he got something come up. He got something came up and he got to deal with it. So he left.
Yeah.
And what about Jesse? Jesse, he found those two guys on their territory, and in the car, he did the drugs again, even though he was still in his program, in his rehab program. But he did drugs again to keep himself focused. And then he loaded up the gun. He got up the car and he walked towards these two guys. And these two men, they saw Jesse, so they got off the car as well, and they loaded their gun as well. And when they were approaching each other, and it seems like a shootout was coming up, there was a car drove so fast toward these two men, and uh, like it just drove so fast and hit those two guys right in the face, right in their body. So one guy was dead on the spot, but the other guy still had breath. So the man who got off the car was actually Walter. So Walter, he took out the gun on the ground, and then he shot that guy, that guy who still had breath, to shot him right in the head and shot him dead. And then he turned to Jesse and told him to run. So that was the end of the episode.